Welcome back. Now, Israel may be counting too much on U.S. friendship. Leading U.S. strategist Zbigniew Brzezinski recently spoke out about the matter at a conference hosted by the National Iranian-American Council and the Arms Control Association.
I don't think there is any implicit obligation of the United States to follow, like, a stupid mule, whatever the Israelis do. If they decide to start a war, simply on the assumption that we'll automatically be drawn into it, I think it is the obligation of friendship to say, well, you're not going to be making national decisions for us.
Well, to discuss the issue further, we're now joined by Jamal Abdi, who is Policy Director of the National Iranian-American Council. Thank you for joining us here on RT. Now, the statement made by him is very clear, isn't it? Could the US be accused of blindly backing Israel?
Well, we'll see whether the U.S. blindly backs Israel or follows Bibi Netanyahu into a military conflict with Iran. I think that remains to be seen. But I would say that the sanctions policies that we've seen, the pressure policies, some of the lack of flexibility in being able to negotiate has been driven by the influence of hawkish pro-Israel lobbies in Congress and here in Washington, and that for the U.S. and frankly for Israel, that is not a policy that is beneficial to their interests.
But with Barack Obama back in the White House, how much support can Israel count on?
Well, I think we just saw an election in which this supposed threat that some of these very hawkish folks like Sheldon Adelson have wielded against people like Obama who have wanted to use diplomacy instead of pressure and the threat of war with regard to Iran. We've seen that threat is a paper tiger. The American people, really, they voted for the candidate who promised to actually use negotiations, for the candidate who spoke out against war. And so now I really think that if I'm Netanyahu, I have to take a step back and wonder, okay, I intervened in this election. I went on, he went on national television channels ahead of the election and basically came out against Obama. And Bibi lost that fight. And so he needs to recalculate. President Obama needs to recalculate and figure out, okay, what do we do to actually resolve this situation instead of trying to pander to this hawkish, very right-wing policy driven by some of the pro-Israel lobby groups, and instead find a policy that actually benefits everybody in preventing a war and preventing the possibility of a nuclear threat coming from Iran.
Well, with all these hawks that you mentioned, do you think an attack on Iran is a real option, a real possibility?
I definitely think it's a real possibility. And the reason is that, at the end of the day, we're faced with either a diplomatic resolution to this standoff, or we see the escalating pressure, the escalating antagonism that cannot survive indefinitely, that eventually is going to reach a tipping point, and whether it's deliberate or it's accidental, we're going to end up in a war. And so as long as the pressure-only policies continue to dominate and continue to undermine diplomacy, as long as sanctions continue to be a spoiler in the diplomatic process and limit the flexibility that we have to actually find a deal that resolves these issues, we're eventually going to end up in a war.
Okay, Jamal Abdi, Policy Director of the National Iranian-American Council. Thank you for those thoughts and analysis today.